Now we want to take questions from the audience. Does anybody have a question? Yeah.
So I had a question for, I have many questions.
Great.
But if you run out of questions.
I have some too, yes.
For Scott, that was a really instructive and interesting presentation. I'm in neither books nor medical, so but there was a lot there that we could learn from. I have a very elementary question that goes to a rather early part of your talk when you were talking about media assets and how there was this sort of, there were all of these extra slides that you couldn't use, you had to find a place for them, etc. Given the sort of how semantically driven your sites are, there's obviously was a need to enrich those with metadata, presumably. And I was curious how what sort of metadata schema or model you were using, and how much enrichment you felt you had to do on those assets, and sort of the level of effort of that.
Yeah, so I guess the question was about the sort of amount of metadata or semantic tagging we had to put behind the image libraries. I'm probably the worst person to ask about that. I mean, we obviously had to do it. We had to make sure that all our images were as discoverable as the content set. Particularly in those early days, and still probably today, we rely on we build these products with Silverchair. So we were relying on a lot of their technology to kind of auto tag some of the stuff, but in the early days it was very human labor intensive. And you're right, every image had to be looked at, had to be identified. Now, we got a lot of this stuff organized, so I think one of the first big image banks we did was in hematology. So, we were able to rely also on the authors or editors that were providing that content to help organize it and start the process. But yeah, in order to make sure that if somebody did a search, on a particular melanoma, and we had 4 images that were on that we could bring it back, we had to spend as much time tagging the individual media assets as we did the core content, for sure.
Did you have another question?
Oh, I have many.
Oh, there's one back here. We'll come back.
I'm John Fletcher. I'm a journal editor. I have a question for Patty, which was thank you for some really innovative ideas about content. I've noted down quite often you said patient pages, social media, patient magazine, written by editors. That sounded like quite a lot of work. I was wondering how many of these products brought in more revenues than were paid on the extra staff hours to produce the content? And how?
Definitely the magazine does bring in more revenue. We have 500,000 plus subscribers to the patient magazine. So that I think we probably have brought in, more revenue than we've had to apply, editors time to. The other things, the podcast, the patient pages, where we do have editor-intensive work there, but mainly those have been labors of love. The editors get very small stipends for the work they do for those things, but they enjoy doing them. So in the journal, in the academic journal world, ego is a big part of just, reward. From a monetization standpoint, sometimes we, ego trumps whether we're actually going to, make money from something.
Oh, okay. Now there are about 5 hands. You want to ask another question? Okay. Do you want to go?
Hi, I'm Tony O'Rourke from Royal College of Nursing in the UK. This is actually for Jeremy. Just regarding your volumes that you're producing in Radio Select, what do you do about adding new content to an existing volume? What's the business model? So you're charging $55 for a volume. Let's say you publish a new landmark paper in one of your journals that will include in one of your volumes. How do you then go about charging, providing access to the existing versions? And I said we've got exactly the same person selling.
Yeah, to be honest, we haven't even gotten that far yet. So I would imagine we would have to look at ways to maybe to do that. But for the most part right now, we're just taking a look at the articles that are currently available and just using that as the basis for each additional volume. We're even looking, I mentioned that we were looking at scaling back maybe even to 1 volume per year. However, we have our centennial coming up now, so we're even looking at taking a centennial type of approach and having a Radiology Select centennial volume as well, which we are a little bit afraid it's going to be even more work that's going to be put into it. So right now it's just basically what we have at this time, but it's a good idea and it's a good thought, and it's something that we'll definitely add to that long list on that last slide of things to consider for the future.
Great. Yes?
I have one question for Nadia.
Okay. Can you speak up a little bit?
I'll try.
Okay.
My name is Adam Etchen, I'm the Director of Publishing at Academy. So, Patty, you spoke a bit about your use of videos and audio reflections, your app, and others. I'm just wondering who produced those, what kind of effort goes into that? Do you have staff who does that for you, or as you said, ego?
Most of that is staff driven. So we have people on our staff who, for instance, do get together with the authors to, by Skype or on phone to actually record the reflections pieces. The issues that we put together, basically those are staff, kind of driven, and we do get a lot of buy-in from the editors, whose pieces that were, for instance, that clinical implications of neuroscience research. The editor is very keen about that. The author who writes those pieces. What else? I'm sorry, I didn't hear everything you asked about.
I think you pretty much answered it.
Okay.
I guess to expand, I don't think I have too much time. So in terms of the videos, are the editors, are they doing video editing? Do they have to
We actually have a staff video, a department that we do do the editing through. Yeah. Practically, well, not really, but we do have a video lab that we can in our organization that can do editing for us.
And quickly, Jeremy, you had mentioned for the Radiology Select, pricing I think is $55 for volume print. Could you speak a little bit about pricing structure for the online only or the app or the other options available?
Yeah, we did. We did a good amount of research in terms of some of it was, what the market was able to bear as far as the app goes. We had seen that, most people or most apps kind of similar. There weren't many very similar to ours. Were around like the $7.99 to $9.99 range. So we kind of had to just, to be perfectly honest, just put it out there a little bit and see how the market would react to it. And then for the online, like we did a lot of research in terms of providing that differential for the members and the non-members, and we felt because this was such a big effort to charge members that we couldn't we didn't want to go too high for that, and so we just arrived at a price point that we felt that was really comfortable. A lot of it was based on the cost for educational content that's not available to members, but if somebody wanted to purchase educational content, it was usually around $15 to $20 per kind of test or per credit type of deal. So we use that as a bit of a base, and then for the print on demand, we definitely made sure we had a price point where we would at least cover our costs and hopefully get a little bit extra out of that. So.
I had a question about for Bert about mini sites. At the beginning of the session, one of the questions was how to function as publishers in a Google-dominated world, where people are using aggregated search and going directly to the articles or items of interest to them. And I was curious if you could talk, you showed some examples of publishers that had used these mini sites. I was curious if you had any information on how those mini sites, perform in a Google-dominated world, if you will, both in terms of being destinations in and of themselves, and in terms of adding perhaps Google juice to individual articles.
Yeah, great question. If everybody heard that, Stuart was asking about how a mini site functions in terms of search engine optimization, the way that Google treats the mini site relative to the main site, I think, is the gist of what you're asking. Well, so a mini site is designed to be search engine optimized. So it's one of its purposes is discovery itself, and it's an opportunity to design a page so that all the best practices of SEO are in play. Namely, putting descriptive information in the title. So for example, the cancer discovery news is a good example. It does rate very highly as a homepage in Google searches. But the important thing to point out, though, is that the articles themselves actually refer back to the main site. So one of the things that we have to watch out for in this Google-dominated world is falling away from the rules, and one of them is that you don't want to be you appear to be a content farm. It's the term that Google uses, where content is simply being appropriated from one site and put on another page, and that page is trying to get ranking and clicks away from the original site. So it's a tightrope that you walk. The way that we solve the problem for publishers is that the articles themselves are URLs that refer back to the original site. So it's not taking anything away from the site, but the page itself may have value in itself, especially when news is published on that page. So it's a distinction that's important to make.
Have you heard anything from the clients who have done this about, have they shared any results of these mini sites with you in terms of how their goals are being met, even specific quantitative?
Well, we know that, just anecdotally, and I don't have the statistics on it, is that discovery in general has increased, that they're seeing more. The mini sites tend to rate very highly in Google searches, and that since it does refer back to the main site, it does work very positively for them.
There was a question back there. Yes.
Yes. I'm Jake Sarno from Silverchair. I think that there's been a lot of discussion about the technical aspects of using content and how to do it, but maybe the million or millions of dollars question is, I guess the quote that Jeremy, you put up around the doctor saying, hey, didn't I buy this already? Shouldn't it be free? How are we going to move into selling a services layer on top of the content rather than just the content? I think that's a big question as we develop these products. We have to be able to sell them. And maybe Jeremy and Scott, since you all are kind of actively selling service-based products, what are your arguments? How do you respond to that, to that feedback?
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, that was the big concern that we had initially, and I think in order for us to really be successful with it, we had to offer additional things. We couldn't just say, hey, here's Radiology Select. We really felt that there was value in having these guest editors really go through all of these articles on a particular topic, and like I had mentioned before, not just say, oh, this one's good, this one's good, this one's good, but just pick them based on how they relate to each other and really show and illustrate the advancement of that particular topic. But we did feel we had to take it a step further and add some, it would be great, and you can go, actually if you go on the home page, you can get a link to see the kind of an introductory video for the next volume that's coming out for breast cancer screening. And the videos associated with that are very informative. I think for this one, the quality of the videos are really great, but it's also, I think this will have more of an appeal to a broader audience as well, just the way the product's evolved a little bit in terms of how this video and this supplemental part of it, which is another part that we really felt we had to add to the product. And then, of course, the educational piece, just providing something else that, hey, you can purchase this product, get the opportunity for some more educational content. That met the needs for that market, and that's, and like I had mentioned at the beginning, it might not be the case for all publishers or all societies or whatever, but for us, we just tried to really find other ways to meet the needs of our core market. Now, how it translates once we look into an institutional approach, I mean, this is something that we would like to see if we could maybe try to sell this on an institutional level. Managing some of that CME and trying to sell people on CME is going to be a little bit more of a challenge that we're going to have to explore. But again, with a lot of the supplemental editorials, these are why these articles are important. Interviews with the authors, what's changed with the science since the articles originally published. We feel that kind of added a lot to, or brought a lot more to the table than just, here's the articles, you should buy them. Again.
Yeah, I think anytime it's content-based, it's a fine line between convincing people this is something new and novel and something they've already paid for, which is why I think we tried to attack it from the tool standpoint, and charging more or delivering what we felt was more value and convincing people of that. I think internally the bigger learning process was for us. We tend to be a very cautious industry and sort of afraid of demanding what we think we should be getting, and so a lot of it was just having the intestinal fortitude to say, hey, we know this is valuable, we know that your end users are using this, and we think it's unique and novel, and you know what, it costs more. So
Got to put it out there.
One more question? Did you have one? Yes.
Asking to Mr. Bruno, Scott. I don't know much about the clinical surgery studies, but this site looks kind of wordy instead of this illustration kind of things, video or whatever. In terms of truth-sensitive discovery, search results. Every surgeon has their own operation. What is the best way to operate? How did you discover the good surgery results for each individual surgeon, resident surgeon? Do you have a...
Yeah, so the question was, every surgeon approaches a surgery or procedure a little bit differently, so how do we present the best, or how to, it's a very real problem we had. I think when we got into this internally, we have now, I think on our Access Surgery, we have over 500 skin-to-skin surgical procedures, so a lot of video. We started licensing it, so we went to some partners like Columbia and Michigan that had some. But yeah, pretty quickly we found out that a lot of surgeons were like, well, that's not the way I do it, And there was actually on East Coast, West Coast, it was like the old days of rap, where they were like, it was true, They taught things differently at UCLA than they did at Michigan, and so. We had a real internal debate about, do we put up two versions of the same procedure? And in a lot of cases, that's what we did. In a lot of cases, we just relied on our editorial advisors to say, yeah, you can do it differently. There's obviously everybody has their own techniques. Your goal and your aim should be to provide, a true and reliable way that everybody can pretty much agree is acceptable. And, people will learn their own unique techniques as they progress in their career.
I wonder if you're gonna plan to add audience review or recommendation for peer review into your site?
I don't think we have any current plans to do it, but it's not a bad idea. I think every time we've tried to introduce elements of sort of chat or social, feedback, it hasn't really seemed to work. I'm not sure why. But, on procedures and things like that, it could be an interesting idea, interesting thing to try.
Thank you very much to everyone who attended, and thank you to the panelists.